We're going to be updating our tier list for Metroidvanias, all the Metroidvanias I've played. We've got a bunch of them already here. Some of them will be rearranged in this part. Some of them will be newly placed. We've got plenty to place here. Some of the games that I'll be focusing on rearranging are the Metroid games, since I've kind of got a refresh perspective on a lot of them since I replayed a lot of them between now and the last update. What's up, Bravo? Hope all is well. So yeah, I'm excited for us to be doing this update. And after this update's completed, I'll make sure to do an upload for it as well, since I think the last time we uploaded an update was after playing Silksong. So yeah, let's begin. And let me know as usual if audio has any troubles or anything like that. Yeah, what's up, Fro? Okay, so we're gonna start not from left to right, but excuse me, but we're gonna start from order in which I played the games. First game being here, Axiom Verge 2. So Axiom Verge 2 I played last year. Actually, I think SteamWorld Dig I played before that, and maybe Metroid 1 even before that, but either way, we'll start with Axiom Verge 2. So this game I thought was a significant improvement over the first game. It really felt like the developer matured in developing their own style and way of, understanding and realizing the direction of their own game. Not just with regards to like aesthetic components like the story or the setting or the backdrop or things like that, but also just the gameplay elements, especially the exploration. Thought it was much more matured from the first game. The first game had lots of points throughout the game where you're kind of just backtracking manually back and forth across the map to find the next place you're supposed to use the progression ability you just got. And of course, during my own playthrough, I didn't know about the central corridor fast travel, but I don't think that would have changed much my impression of that game. Whereas in Axiom Verge 2, lots of the way the exploration unravels in that game is in a funneling manner, which is the typical implementation of exploration in these kinds of games, especially when you want them to be non-linear. Also, this game has much better fast travel. This game has some modern quality of life features and such. So I was really impressed with Axiom Verge 2. It's not a very fleshed out combat kind of game, and nor are there any significant boss fights per se. And for that matter, the enemy designs are pretty rudimentary. Quite annoying, in fact. But I found myself enjoying this game quite a bit, and the music is fantastic. Hey, what's up, Nice Streams? Haven't played all of these, but this list seems legit. Yeah, it's been a project over the course of several months. I guess at this point, it's been at least a year in the making. But yeah, I'll continue updating as I go along, of course. I think there's if you're curious about what I have to say about these games, by the way, of course, feel free to check back on the previous parts, which are all linked in the description. I made sure to update the description with all the previous parts, so that we wouldn't be kind of detached from the things that I mentioned before, because I do think the explanations I gave for each of these games is necessary to have as context apart from just seeing the placements. But yeah, with that being said about Axiom Verge 2, I'm definitely placing it enjoyable. Now, where in enjoyable? This is a tricky one. There's a lot of good games in this relative vicinity, but I'm going to put it just below 9 Souls, probably. I do think it is a step above Ori 1. Ori 1 is a pretty high-quality game in terms of production value, but Axiom Verge 2, I think, nails all of the Metroidvania aspects that I'm typically looking for when I play a game of this genre. So I think this is where it'll stand. And again, if you want to hear in-depth thoughts on Axiom Verge 2, I gave those following the playthrough. I think that verbal review was one of my more detailed ones, so feel free to check that out in the playlist. You did like Ender Lilies, the sequel's even better. Yeah, Ender Lilies didn't end up being a favorite of mine by any means. I can understand why people like it, but I don't think it quite appealed to me in the way that I look for in these games. So, with that being said, I don't think the second game is going to catch my interest either. But yeah, this is where we'll place Axiom Verge 2. Moving on. I think after Axiom Verge 2 was SteamWorld Dig. I know Metroid 1 was probably before this. No, not probably. It was for sure before this. But we'll do SteamWorld Dig next. We all have our own taste. Yeah, exactly. Which is why, you know, I think it's nice to accompany these placements with explanations. I don't just want to place stuff. 'Cause what's the point in doing that? And realistically, I'm not like a tier list person anyway, but I've recognized that tier lists are a great vehicle for expressing oneself in opinions. So I'm on board with them now. Once upon a time, I was a hater, and now I'm an understander. Anyway, yeah, SteamWorld Dig 1. We played this in the blind race along with SteamWorld Dig 2 following that. I liked this game a lot. This game was a very fresh take on the genre, and it was a time period where the indie space wasn't as, I guess, it was still like a fledgling indie Metroidvania space. There were games like Ori 1, there were games like Guacamelee, there were games like Axiom Verge 1 shortly afterwards, but there weren't that many indie Metroidvanias there are nowadays. But with that in mind, I mean, this game is amazing. I really enjoyed it. I thought having, like, you know, kind of this it kind of reminded me of some of the survival games that are out nowadays, where, you know, you kind of gotta accumulate resources to progress to some degree, but then you're also still getting the sense of like exploring the world and uncovering deeper and deeper the means of progressing. So I really enjoyed this, and it felt like a lot more open than what I would expect out of a game like this, especially with its length. I probably will go back and try to play this on my own outside the blind race context, but I think in the blind race context I had a good enough sense of how the game was. I'll definitely put it in enjoyable, probably below Ori 1. Somewhere here is where I'd put it. Yeah, I mean, this game was great. Maybe one thing I didn't necessarily like too much is that I felt that the like optional areas, there wasn't as much of an incentive to do. It just felt like bonus content, which is not inherently bad, but usually there's got to be like a greater interest in exploring optional areas, or like optional like little dungeons that they had in SteamWorld Dig 1, rather than just like, oh, you get this like upgrade that doesn't really matter that much, you know. Like, I get it, they want to like, it's similar to like Metroid, and I don't like it in Metroid either, where they have like optional additional missile packs that you can pick up if you wanted to, or you can like look as like a form of secrets, I guess. But I don't like them in those games either, because they just kind of feel like unnecessary. They don't really add too much. I guess as far as like those times were concerned, though, for retro games especially, like it's a way of selling the guidebook. You know, the guidebook can put all the secrets in there, right? So I guess SteamWorld Dig 1, and that was still during a time period where that was not necessarily out of the ordinary to have guidebooks for games like this. So I guess that's where it was following along, but I didn't necessarily find it to be of great value. But I enjoyed it quite a bit. You played the first Gal Guardians, you know it's not a Metroidvania, but you dropped it after 2 hours and it put you off trying the sequel. Interesting. Well, if you didn't like the first game, I don't know if you like the second one. I'm assuming you're talking about what is the first game even called? It's like Demon Purge, I think. Yeah, Demon Purge is not really a Metroidvania. It's like a stage based. It's like more in the vein of classic Vanias. But I liked it a lot more than the second game. The second game, I played it on launch and it was a mess. Dear me. Yeah, just lacking cohesion in exploration. Like, the map is pretending to be interconnected, but the reality is that like there's not really any reason to go back to previous areas, except for the fact that you just have to roam around aimlessly to find the next progression in many points of the game. And they did fix it. They made the fast travel better so that the map is more cohesive, but it's still probably did not fix things entirely. It was a band-aid fix among the plethora of other issues that game had. But anyway, yeah, SteamWorld Dig 1 goes there. We'll do Metroid 1 next. I love this game. I know it might be surprising, but I actually love this game. And it's not because I like all the trolling or whatever nonsense, because this game has so much trolling and so much old school garbage that frankly did not age well. And for that matter, there's no in-game map. They expect you to form the map in your head. Oops. They expect you to form the map in your head, and it's like, okay, Like, are you serious? Like the way this game is structured is just like the quintessential NES era game design, right? And mind you, games back then, like games as like a I don't want to say art form, that makes it sound a bit too flowery, but I guess as like a discipline, as a profession, like it wasn't as refined as it is nowadays, because you know, back then people were still experimenting a lot, people were still figuring out what worked and what didn't. And for that matter, there were hardware and space limitations and all those other things that we don't have to deal with right now. There might have been a map in the in-game manual. Oh my goodness. In the game manual, sorry, yeah. That's pretty funny. 9 Years of Shadow, you can't see it there. You thought it was okay? Yeah, I haven't played it, but I don't know if I'll play it. I checked it out a little bit and wasn't too keen on it, but maybe one day I'll check it out. But yeah, nah, I mean, Metroid 1 is a completely troll game, but the reason I like it, and it's such a simple reason, and again, it might be surprising, but generally I could see what they were going for, and for them to have been going for such like eccentric non-linear game in a time period where go from left to right platformers were all people made pretty much, like this game was like something special. Like you can tell they were going somewhere, and it's kind of cool to see where Metroid took off in the direction it did as more and more games got released. And I think obviously the best form of what they were trying to go for in Metroid 1 was realized in both Super Metroid and Zero Mission. So I really like this game. But that being said, this game sucks to play. Like if you're trying to play it right now, just play it with a guide or play it with a map. Maybe a guide is like too much, but just play with a map. It's much better with the map. And there's a couple mods out there that put an in-game map so that it's way better to play. There's also a mod that lets you start with full health every time you die. Because in the vanilla game, when you die, you revive at the start of the area you died in with only 30 HP. No matter how much health you had when you died, or like no matter how many E-tanks you collected up to that point, you still start with 30 HP, which sucks because you have to farm every single time, and farming takes forever. There's a lot of rooms and sections and enemies and such where they're meant to be frustrating to farm and they're meant to be like a pain. But with that mod, it makes it a lot better. There's also the fact that, well, there's something else about this game that I was gonna mention. Oh, there's several sections that legit are just meant to I mentioned trolling a lot, but there's legit a section that has nothing of substance in it, and it's just like a large loop of like 9 rooms stacked like together. Basically, they're like, it's like 9 rooms arranged in like a tic-tac-toe grid, and there's nothing of value in any of those rooms, but they all like loop to each other. It's so messed up. Like like I'm not excusing that, by the way. By saying that I like this game, I'm not excusing any of that nonsense, but this game is so cool. Like generally, I cannot stress this enough, for there to have been like a side-scrolling platformer back then where you could scroll the screen both up, down, and left, right, like that is insane. Like it's crazy. And like, just like, not to mention like the fact that the pathing that you can take to beat the game is just truly non-linear. It's a really cool game. Blasphemous Too Dark? No, not necessarily. I just don't like Souls-likes. I don't like Souls-like Metroidvanias, so I did not check it out. I know it sounds weird to say that, and I played 9 Souls, but 9 Souls I played for a very specific reason, so that's besides that. Just designed to be part of a maze? Yeah. It's like a section in what's the area called? It's where Kraid is. I think it's just called Kraid's Lair. And yeah, you go to that area and there's just nothing. Straight up nothing. Like, but you have to understand with Metroid 1, and especially a lot of the games of this kind back then, the gameplay was figuring out the path. The gameplay was figuring out how to explore the world and how to make progress. That was the gameplay. It's not like today's Metroidvanias where a lot of the gameplay is flashy Souls-like parry combat with, like, you know, the Zelda style, like, progression ability leads to the next progression, leads to a key that unlocks a new door you couldn't previously unlock. kind of deal, right? Where basically the Metroidvania exploration is like a side quest, you know, and the main appeal of today's indie Metroidvanias is a lot of the time the parry combat or what have you. But the appeal of Metroid 1 was the craziness of the layout of the game, of the map, and figuring out how in the world to navigate that game, you know? Like, that's something that needs to be stressed. Now, with all that being said, right, where would I place this game? It's not going to go that high still. I mean, I'm not that crazy. It's probably going to go, like... It's probably going to go here, like the top of decent. It's not like... It's not a good game by today's standards, but, like, genuinely, this game is sick. Like, if you haven't played Metroid 1, at least give it a try with, like, you know, what I recommended with the a ROM hack that adds an in-game map, and a ROM hack. There is at least one ROM hack that has all of the quality of life things I'm talking about. So you can go check that out on your own. But I mean, I'm not saying this game is good. This game is not good, but by today's standards. But if you play this and like really think about what they were going for in this game, you could tell they had something, you know. Yeah. Anyway, it's not really Souls-like. It's an overused phrase, and you hate Souls games. Yeah, maybe we can get into that in a separate discussion. I need to definitely air off some things still about how the Souls isms have infested modern gaming. And, you know, a large part of it is not the games, it's the player base more so, but still, there's a discussion to be had there. But yeah, for another time. Okay, so moving forward, I think SteamWorld Dig 2 should be next. No, but I played AM2R before that. Okay, we'll do AM2R next. So AM2R, I played Samus Returns for the first time last year, I believe. Was it last year or was it? Anyway, it was recently. It was after playing Metroid Dread, so I think it had to have been last year. Regardless, though, I really liked Samus Returns, but I think the point in time where I really started liking it was towards the mid to late game. I think, especially in the mid game, there was a point in time which I got stuck. And it wasn't really like stuck in terms of like where to go next, but it was stuck in terms of all these annoying enemies like clumped in this one area, and I kept dying over and over to them as I was traversing through it. And the thing about Samus Returns specifically is that the enemies are super tanky in that game, and killing them quickly is like a genuine skill to build. Like, you know, that's something that maybe expert or more practiced people like speedrunners could do. But if you're like just playing the game for the first time, the enemies in that game are such a nuisance. Like, they're so tanky, and your weaponry early game is just not well equipped to get through rooms quickly. So you just gotta stop, wait for them to do their parryable attack, parry them so that they get one shot, and then keep going. And that typically is how you get through rooms with enemies, right? But that gets really pace breaking really quickly, right? Now, why am I talking about Samus Returns right now? Because AM2R is like the analog. In fact, AM2R was meant to be the fan-made Metroid 2 remake, because supposedly Nintendo was taking too long doing a remake of Metroid 2 when the fans really wanted it. So one fan took it upon themselves to do so, and it came out extremely well. Like, this is probably one of the best fan games out there in terms of quality. Like, it's such a high quality fan game, it's crazy. They really did a great job. Now, that being said, do I like this game? I actually do not like AM2R, and I really regret saying this. And I don't mean like regret as in like you know, I'm gonna regret it later. No, I mean like, it's unfortunate that I don't like it, because I really understood when I was playing it how much work went into it, right? And it's really high quality, but I cannot say I enjoyed it. Like, it was such an annoying game to get through. There's definitely some decent quality of life features in there, like being able to revert to your last save immediately. I remember that distinctly being a great feature that it had. I'm not sure if that was added after the fact, though, because this game has gotten some updates after it initially released. The other thing about AM2R, though, is that it's kind of more faithful to the original Metroid 2 than Samus Returns is, which I found to actually not be pleasant Because even though Metroid 2 has some merits, I think there's a lot of things about that game that are super whack. And AM2 are kind of following in the footsteps of that game. Wasn't very appealing to me. Not to mention, I felt like there were a lot of parts where the backtracking was a little too much. Like you had to kind of run across the map to get to the next place you're supposed to progress to. Whereas in Metroid 2, it's truly like Area 1, Area 2, Area 3, Area 4. Like you go in that order, similar to how Samus Returns also does it. Whereas in AM2R, you're kind of... I guess it's more in line with what I would expect out of an interconnected map. But at the same time, like that's where the cracks really start to show. With how, like, you know, a lot of Metroid games don't have fast travel traditionally. Where, you know, Samus Return does have fast travel, interestingly. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, AM2R, and like I mentioned all these things, these honestly aren't detrimental enough for me to dislike the game that severely, but the main breaking point for me was the Metroids, the mini bosses you fight countless times in Metroid 2 analogs. It's extremely annoying in AM2R specifically, and they're annoying in the original Metroid 2 as well, but at least in that game, because of the rudimentary nature of, you know, the gameplay, you can kind of cheese a lot of it and like escape otherwise what would be otherwise extremely annoying sequences, right? But AM2R, I don't know, like it's especially annoying in that game, the Metroids. Yeah, it left a sour taste in my mouth. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I mean, like, it's a shame that I didn't like it, because it is a high quality game, but I really did not enjoy it, and I don't think I'll be going back to play it again. So with that being said, I know this placement might come with a great regret, but it's going to be roughly around here, unfortunately. Fusion will probably move, so, you know, don't riot yet, because there's going to be stuff moving around. One other game you wanted to mention, La Mulana. Is that what you're talking about, La Mulana? I heard about that game. I heard that game is like the blind playthrough's worst nightmare, so I kind of made a point to avoid it, but maybe one day. Yeah, so that's where AM2R will stand. You know, I'm sad. I didn't like it, but you know, that's how it goes. Metroid 2, on the other hand, the original Metroid 2, I liked it, actually, which is weird, because I think this game is also pretty rough. Like, this game is extremely rough, and you have to keep in mind the original game doesn't have a map either, in-game map, and I think it's actually worse of a map to kind of visually represent a layout for than the original Metroid. The original Metroid, yeah, it doesn't have a map, but it's much smaller in the scope of the game, so it's kind of much easier to make your own map. Whereas Metroid 2, oh yikes, like that game not having a map is brutal, even though technically it's way more linear. Yeah, and the reason why that's brutal as well is like all the Metroid 2 analogs, the goal of the game is not necessarily to like unlock progress to eventually make it to the end. The goal is to kill all the Metroids. So you have like a countdown. You have like a countdown that's keeping track of how many Metroids you need to kill still. And Metroid 2 specifically will show you how many Metroids you have left in a given area. But sometimes they're like placed in a pretty obscure location. And if you don't recall what zones and spots you visited, it can be a nightmare to backtrack. The cool thing about Metroid 2 is the movement. I think the movement is like genuinely really cool in that game. And that's like one of the few, if not the only Metroid game where Varia Suit actually gives you a speed increase, just like a walk speed increase. Not to mention the fact that Spring Ball is actually like a very meaningful movement ability in that game. And I mentioned those all, like the Spring Ball and the Varia Suit, but on top of that, you have the Spider Ball. And this was the first game the Spider Ball appeared in, and the Spider Ball is so cool in this game. Not just for, like, obviously traversing atop rooms with terrain, no matter what the terrain is shaped like, because you can, as long as the terrain doesn't explicitly forbid Spider Ball from being attached to it, you can Spider Ball on any terrain, and it's wonderful. Allows you to see rooms in a much different light, which is what I liked about Samus Returns as well. So I'm glad that Samus Returns was able to like adequately replicate that. Kind of the weird thing about Spider Ball on top of what I just mentioned though is that there's like the spider throw technique where if you have Spider Ball toggled while you're airborne and moving towards the left, you move like at such a faster speed than your normal morph ball speed, which is like a really weird quirk, I guess, of whatever engine they had for Metroid 2. But it makes it like movement's just really cool in Metroid 2 basically. But I mean, I'm not gonna like gush about the movement and ignore all the other issues this game has. I mean, the Metroids are extremely elementary in design and just annoying. I mean, AM2R, if I'm complaining about AM2R's annoying Metroids, like Metro 2 even more so is annoying. But thankfully they're so basic that like it's easy to cheese and stuff, right? There's a really bad missiles and just resources issue in Metroid 2. Not the same way as like Metroid 1 where you know you gotta farm HP like every other room basically. But in a sense where if you run out of missiles, which you kind of end up being dangerously low on missiles late game. If you run out of missiles, then you're in huge trouble. Because you won't be able to beat the Metroids without missiles. There's no like charge beam or anything. Charge beam was first introduced in Super Metroid, so you didn't have that as a bailout. But they did have missile refills, and they did have health refills. They're kind of located in very odd spots, like maybe like guidebook moment type of spots. But at least they're there, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of strange. The environmental storytelling of Metroid 2 is really cool too, though. And I don't think I picked up on it as much when I first played compared to when I replayed it after reading this person's article talking about Metroid 2. And I was like, wow, this is kind of like changing how I see a lot of the things about the game. Like the attention to detail on the world building just through the design of the environment is really cool. But again, this game is still pretty rough. But with all that being said, I still think they were going for something cool here, and thus it'll go relatively high, maybe just below Metroid 1. Somewhere around there. No map is so bad. Well, while now you think maps are too generous, especially when we have markers. Yeah, you know, back then there were some elements that were, you know, left behind because of padding. So that you know the player could feel like they got more value out of the game they purchased with the increased game time that leads to, right? But nowadays you can't really rely on that. I mean, some games still do it, and players are very present of mind, so they're not gonna be fooled by that anymore. So many people are very concerned with, you know, bang for your buck, right? How many hours you get per dollar spent. So unfortunately, that is a real thing that developers have to be conscious of. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that perspective, but it's the reality that developers have to recognize exist when they're making their game. All right, anyway, let's move on. SteamWorld Dig 2. I didn't like this game as much, to be honest, as SteamWorld Dig 1. Like SteamWorld Dig 2 didn't feel very open compared to SteamWorld Dig 1, like in terms of just the world. Like the zones were very rigid and had very like very distinct borders that you couldn't go past when you were digging, and it felt like more like a linear adventure, especially with the progression and stuff compared to SteamWorld Dig 1. Now I will say, speaking of progression, this progression abilities in SteamWorld Dig 2 way better than SteamWorld Dig 1, like night and day. The progression abilities in SteamWorld Dig 2 are so sick, and if we're just rating it on that alone, SteamWorld Dig 2 is definitely better than SteamWorld Dig 1. And in fact, SteamWorld Dig 2 kind of plays more like a traditional Metroidvania in that sense. But because it's way more linear, I didn't feel as allured by it very much as SteamWorld Dig 1, even though SteamWorld Dig 1 is not as Metroidvania-esque with how it's structured with progression and stuff. So there's like an interesting contrast between the two games. I wouldn't say one is strictly better than, or strictly worse, or strictly better than the other. I ended up liking SteamWorld Dig 1 more, but SteamWorld Dig 2 is definitely a more polished game, if that makes sense. So they're pretty close to each other. That's about where I would put it. Afterimage was way too cheap to buy for its bang for your buck. Yes, I'm in agreement, but a lot of people on the Metroidvania subreddit and elsewhere keep saying that Afterimage at $5 is about how much it's worth, which is truly a shame. But yeah, I'm of the opinion. I mean, I bought it at near full price, and that's like some of the best value I've gotten ever out of any game. It's one of my favorite games still. But yeah, SteamWorld Dig 2, excellent game. Definitely some obnoxious sections, especially that darkness section after you enter the like a little electricity thing. Like that section is super obnoxious. The bosses are yikes, but I don't think SteamWorld Dig has ever been a game that's fond of bosses. I don't think any Metroidvania has really been fond of bosses for the most part to begin with. That's just not the roots of the genre compared to other genres, like, you know, the action platformer genre, like the Mega Mans and stuff, you know. But I still enjoyed this game, and there's definitely a lot of elements that are just better than SteamWorld Dig 1, but I think I ended up enjoying SteamWorld Dig 1 more still. That's about where I stand. Okay, I hope that was clear on that. So we got 3 more games here, and then we're going to rearrange some of the existing games. We got Emberbane next. Not much to say about this game. This game was just... It's just not a finished game. I heard they patched it since I last played. I mean, when I played it, it was day 1, and the game literally did not work. Just baseline functionality. Riddled with bugs, endless. If you want to rate and assess the things that the game had competence in, there were definitely a lot of cool ideas with like the element switching. One of the elements had like a flame dash, another element had like a extra jump or something. And then there was some platforming ideas they had where you switch elements midair to, you know, navigate through basically. Those ideas were definitely cool. I do think the enemy design though is pretty poor. It's all very basic, and a lot of them are on the annoying side rather than interesting to engage with. I kind of just found myself skipping past stuff. There's a lot of stretches too where you don't get a checkpoint after a while, and it feels like a gauntlet rather than like exploring. I don't know. Some of these Metroidvanias nowadays, honestly, with how they like literally have just like a stretch of straight line pathing, I have to wonder what a Metroidvania even means to a lot of these developers anymore. I think that is a necessary like existential question to ask when you're about to make a game. Like, just what is a Metroidvania to you? And then based on whatever the answer to that is, have a strong foundation and guidance from there. But anyway, yeah, there's not much to say about this game. This game is just very poor. Again, I heard they patched it, but I'm not convinced that the patches fully fix things. And I've also heard that the developer shut down the studio. So it's unfortunate. That probably means that the issues won't fully be fixed ever. So that's where this game stands. It's unfortunate, you know. I didn't refund it because, you know, I was hopeful that things would be fixed, but I don't think they ever got to it. So sadly, that is the state of affairs in the indie space right now. This is all too common a tale. It's not just with this game. There's several other games follow along this path. The ones you hear about obviously are the success stories, but usually they're 1 in a million. And soon that number might be literal because of how many new games there are in the indie space nowadays. Like, everyone wants to release the next Friend Slop or whatever, or the next Vampire Survivors clone, or the next Hollow Knight for that matter, if we're talking about Metroidvanias. So yeah, I'm definitely not gonna be the one to play all of them. That's what I'll say. The one I will play though, Shattered Divinities. This game was wonderful. I really liked this one. It's a very small scope game, not just in length, but also in in design space. Like, this game didn't try to like go too above and beyond like an Afterimage kind of way where they're trying to build this like vast epic fantasy world, you know. This game really just tried to stick with the very tight narrative with you know, a map that is workable for them but still has all the Metroidvania fundamentals integrated into it, and it was great. It was awesome. Again, it's not like a spectacular game, but I don't think it needed to be. If this was the developer's first outing into the Metroidvania genre, I think this is a great way to put yourself out there, you know, get your foot in the door, make a name for yourself, solidify the ideas that you might have, and try to take them further with whatever new products you work on. I think this is the way to do it. This game was just very grounded. It had pretty much all the great quality of life features that I can think of that a Metroidvania should have nowadays. Like, it had save point fast travel that you can do from anywhere. It had infinite map markers. It had checkpoints before bosses and before I think it was just before bosses, but like, you know, like anti-run back features basically. It had waypoints if you wanted to use them, I guess. The quest system was pretty solid. It had like a Hollow Knight-esque charms thing, but it wasn't trying to be annoying on purpose by making them only equipable in save points. You could equip them literally anywhere, so it encouraged experimentation. And the charms felt impactful, and like, well, on Hollow Knight, I would say the charms are impactful as well. But, yeah, anyway, yeah, the charms felt impactful, basically. Progression abilities are not super inspired, but I don't think you really need to try to invent the wheel with progression abilities in particular. I think the way to set yourself apart in the Metroidvania, especially nowadays, is just by just implementing the exploration pathing coherently enough. Like, the bar really is kind of low right now, because there's a lot of games that are just kind of action platformers but glorified, or just like a 2D Souls-like, basically. So really all you need to do to set yourself apart is just have coherent, non-linear exploration pathing, which this game had. Like, this game was still, like, as far as like the critical path is concerned, it's definitely pretty linear, I would say. But there are definitely ways to go around and about different parts of the world at different points if you wanted to. I think after a certain point, the game kind of fell prey to using some Zelda-esque keys and stuff. You know, it makes it a more workable scope, and I'm not a fan of it personally, but I don't think it detracted from anything the game had going on up until that point, especially with the fact that like all the other great quality of life features are implemented. The combat is like it's very basic, and so is the enemy design. It's obviously on the easier side. I don't think that's an issue per se. I know a lot of people look for supposedly tough combat in their games nowadays. This is probably not the game to play if you're looking for that. Also, you know, a lot of the like abilities and stuff kind of reminded me of action MMOs, like kind of like an L Sword, or like, I guess, a dungeon. I never played Dungeon & Fighter Online, but like similar to that kind of thing, which I thought it was cool. Yeah, if you just want a small scope action adventure side scrolling Metroidvania experience, I think this is a great one. I don't think it's a game that everyone needs to play per se, but I really look forward to seeing like what this developer does further with what they had, because I really like what I saw. So we'll put it here, probably above D-Lit. Go check out the playthrough if you want. It was a short game, so I don't think there's too many parts to watch back if you wanted to watch it. Okie doke, and the last one, the most recent one we finished, Metroid Prime. This is probably the mecca out of the ones we played, even with all I've mentioned prior. This game is absolutely fantastic. It's awesome. This is probably, again, I mentioned the other time when we finished, but this is probably the highest quality Metroid game out there, and that's that's a tall order to overcome. I mean, we're talking about Super Metroid, we're talking about Metroid Zero Mission, we're talking about Metroid Dread out here. Like, for this, in my mind, to have surpassed those games, in my mind, like that's crazy. There's really not much negative I can say about this game. Like, this game, conceptually, and like in terms of execution, in terms of visuals, in terms of narrative and immersion, like it just pretty much nailed everything. The music, the knock I had against this game at certain points, there was one particular point in time where after you got the progression ability, they kind of like, you know, the way a lot of games like this normally do, they have like a certain signposting or design language, or however you want to call it, where they lead you along the path you can go with your next progression ability that you just got, right? And you technically don't have to go there. I mean, Metroid Prime never forces you to go in any one direction because it doesn't close the door behind you after you get a progression ability like in Metroid Dread. You can still go wherever you want. But there's kind of a sense of where you can go and where you should go based on what you just collected, right? The game kind of baits you into doing that in one particular point after you get the ice beam. And it takes you down a one-way path, takes you along this underwater section for quite a while, and then you reach a dead end. Like, after quite a bit of time spent navigating underwater, especially getting through those gnarly enemies and stuff, having to deal with the underwater platforming. You get to a dead end and it tells you you can't progress, and I'm like, okay, dude, like, really? And that was like the only time in the game that happened, so I just felt I felt betrayed, you know? Like, it didn't really make any sense to me. But I guess the whole idea of doing that is just to like burn it into your mind that, you know, that progression block exists and you need to come back to it when you've got a certain other ability. But from what I can understand now anyway, you can sequence break that exact spot, so it didn't really matter, I guess. I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter. It's still worth pointing out regardless. I think the other thing that I didn't like about Metroid Prime is that, and this was fixed in Samus Returns and Metroid Dread, is that this game has so many 50 billion different color-coded keys for color-coded doors, Zelda manner, you know, Zelda style, and they don't permanently unlock after you open the door with the respective color, like the color key, that is. Like, you have to keep opening that door with the respective color-coded key every single time. Like, why did they do that? It's just, there's no reason to do that. It's just annoying. Like, yeah, so for like the plasma door, you have to open it with the plasma beam every single time. So you have to switch to the plasma beam, and like, I'm making it sound like it's like complicated inputs to do it. It's not that it's complicated inputs or whatever. It's just a nuisance for no reason. Like, you have to switch to the beam. You have to open it with that respective beam, and then maybe there's an enemy behind the door that's vulnerable to only one kind of beam. So you have to switch back to the beam that they're vulnerable to like make it through smoothly. And it's just pace breaking. Self-blocking doors, yeah, it's that's like the main complaints. And for those to be my complaints, like, I think that's a good sign. Like, that means the game has done well enough in enough other aspects, right? Like, obviously, every game has flaws still. I'm not saying Prime is a perfect game, but for that to have been the flaw that I felt existed is perhaps a positive in its own right. Like, this game did everything else so wonderfully, like, especially the immersion. I think this is the best handled immersion out of any Metroid game I played, and probably, dare I say, any Metroidvania game I've ever played. Like, legit. I don't think any Castlevania game is particularly immersion focused in that regard. So I don't think they have, I don't think they can challenge that. And for all the other games that are kind of like more immersion oriented, like the Hollow Knights of the world, or like the Nine Souls, or the After Images, or the Prince of Persia's, right? I feel like this game trumps all of them, even even when you compare it to those. With that in mind, this game definitely goes gold standard for me. For that matter, I'd put it above Super Metroid. This is not to say I like Metroid Prime more than Super Metroid, but this is to say I believe it to be a higher degree of gold standard, and maybe even above Soten. Yeah, I think above Soten as well. I mean, like, this game is just absolutely insane. Like, I don't think I can express it. I don't think I can express it properly with just words. Like, it was just crazy. Were there fulfilling, challenging parts or optional tough parts? Rabo, I think this game, the tough, like, and this like goes back to what I was saying about like the core gameplay being the exploration. I think the tough parts of this game were figuring out the path, right? Trying to unravel how the map is unfolding for you and looking for the next spots to go to, and trying to like really think about what progression abilities you have and what they're supposed to do for you. Because there's some things about the progression abilities that the game does not tell you about. Like, I didn't know that you could jump with the morph ball, and apparently that was only added in the I want to say the trilogy version of Prime, or remaster or whatever. Basically, the original version of Prime apparently didn't have morph ball jump, which is called spring ball. And I don't think the game told you. I can't remember though. Stuff like bomb excuse me, bomb jumping, which you're expected to do, not like the mid-air bomb jump, but just you're expected to perform like boost up with the morph ball bomb. What else were you expected to do? You're expected to like obviously know how to use the double jump, because there's some double jumps that are pretty tight, and if you just like kind of do the double jump immediately, then you won't be able to make the jump. Like some of those jumps were tight when I had the double jump, and I was like, wow, this is like definitely what they expect you to do. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, I wouldn't say, actually, you know, I think the other tough part, maybe some of the bosses, like Meta Ridley, I had some trouble with just figuring out the dodges. Yeah, some of those dodges maybe are a little bit tight. And the final boss as well. Well, like part 2 of the final boss is whatever. It's not a big deal. But part 1 is kind of nightmarish. You have to really be good at dodging and quickly switching to your beam so that you can hit the boss with a vulnerable beam. Actually, you know what? Part 2 of the final boss was kind of tough as well because of the Metroid that spawned. But I think that's the main reason. I don't think that boss was necessarily hard, but because it kept spawning those Metroids that are like, it's the fission Metroids, the ones that are weak to like a random beam type. So if you don't have power bombs, you just get bodied. Like it's actually super annoying to deal with those while also hitting the boss, because that's unfortunately Metroid Prime has quite a few cutscene bosses where you can only hit it at like designated times. Otherwise, you're just sitting there doing nothing and waiting. But like yeah, I definitely did not like the bosses in Metroid Prime for the most part. I liked the final boss thematically, like it's very like cinema, right? But the gameplay of the final boss was like, if you just go back and watch, like I'm just sitting there waiting, like that is the boss, unfortunately. And there's like a handful of other bosses in that game that are like that. Like even the I can't remember what it's called, but it's the boss that you fight for Varia. Like you legit have to like you cannot interact with the boss until you it's the standard Metroid boss. I guess that's how Metroid acquired its like stereotypical boss types, or you know, boss designs, is like from Prime probably, because there's so many bosses where you're just like figuring out what's going on with the boss rather than like actually shooting at it, you know. But yeah, above Soten, yeah, I think Soten has been trumped at last, or was trumped at the time. Emphasis on exploration rather than combat. Yeah, exactly. And I looked into it and I wasn't surprised to see that the developers in interviews seemed to want to stress that it's a first-person adventure as opposed to a first-person shooter. That's how they marketed it. And I think that was the right way to go, especially based on how the game played out in my experience. But oh yeah, I didn't mention some other things. This game was absolutely brilliant to play blind. Like I forgot to even mention that. Like all the facilities within the game to be able to beat it are adequate to get through it blind, which is crazy for a game from that time period. I mean, I didn't play with the hint system. I guess the hint system is there if you really need to play with it, but the fact I didn't have to play with the hint system on at any point probably indicates that the design language of the core game suffices, right? I don't know if I really liked the artifacts, to be honest. Definitely, maybe the developers felt a little discomfort in the Soul Metroid design space, so they felt the need to like borrow more from Zelda. And honestly, it didn't feel like it was integrated in a way that fit properly with like what I would expect out of Metroid. I guess because it's like more of a lore kind of game, they had an opportunity to expand upon that a little bit. But the artifacts are literally just MacGuffins. They don't do anything. All they do is unlock the area for the final boss after you collected all 12, but they don't individually do anything. Like, I don't know, like that doesn't really fit with Metroid to me. I don't think I hated it per se, but I definitely didn't like it. I didn't think it was necessary. Yeah. The map was, oh my goodness, that map. Oh my, without that map being so good, I don't know if I would have gotten through that game as readily. Which is why I think all the people that talk about Pseudo Regalia like not needing the map, blah blah blah, before it got the map update, of course. Like I thought that was some nonsense. Yeah. And Pseudo Regalia has like kind of a lot of arbitrary, like in terms of the layout of the world and where you're expected to go next with like progression, it's kind of arbitrary. Like in a way, maybe too non-linear for its own good, perhaps, because some of the stuff you do is a little bit random, or not do. Some of the places you go is like a little bit random, but because you don't know where you're going unless you like build a mental map, and there's no fast travel either, like it's kind of rough. Like you're definitely building it for speedrunners at that point rather than like building it for like the average person, which I guess, you know, I guess that's fine. Which CV is that rated top? It's Aria of Sorrow. Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. I don't think any game surpasses that still. I think that is still the overall best Metroidvania I've played. So was exploration kind of lots of mini puzzles to figure out where to go? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for Metroid Prime. There was a lot of puzzle rooms, like straight up puzzle rooms in general, like you gotta solve a puzzle. But then overall, the core gameplay is like just figuring out how to navigate the world and understanding what your progression abilities do to unlock more progress. Just interfacing with all the, you know, narrative immersive elements as well. I liked the integration of the thermal visor and x-ray visor. I thought those were really cool. I thought they would just be for collecting hidden items or like looking for hidden spots, but there wasn't that much of that actually. In fact, they did kind of shoehorn the usage of the x-ray visor and thermal visor, especially for the final boss. But to my surprise, like they felt like a great integration just to add even more immersion to the already excellent immersion of the game. I cannot stress this enough, guys. Like this game is so sick. Like as a Metroid game, this is probably like the Metroid game. It's in the advanced collection. Should you get that? I would recommend it. Yeah. On a sale, of course, it's a no-brainer. Full price, I mean, you know, you might as well save money. I wouldn't say there's a hurry. There is the new Belmont's Curse coming out soon, so theoretically they'd have a sale in light of that. Actually, that's coming up in a few months now. October. That's not going to be that long from now. I mean, we're already almost in August. But yeah, Metroid Prime, there it is. So we've ranked all the games I've played recently. How about the games I already played and already ranked, and where would they fit now that we've got an updated perspective, right? Yeah, no problem. So we're gonna start with Super Metroid. I think over time I've actually felt less kindly about this game. Not necessarily like to a degree where I think the game is bad or whatever, but there's definitely some things about the game that I didn't end up liking in replays, and also just watching people play too, especially when I watch someone's blind playthrough. Like the game has a lot of like one-way doors that just kind of like, it's similar to Metroid Dread in a way. I mean, it's not entirely to Metroid Dread's degree, but it just kind of forces you to go in certain directions or to like make laborious backtracks in some cases. But the main reason why, like, I think the game is still wonderful, like especially with the non-linearity in the world layout, is that generally feels like you do not need fast travel for this game, and that's a testament to how strong the interconnection or the interconnectivity is of the map. But yeah, the one-way doors I've not grown fondly of. Wall jump is still something that kind of saves the game for me. Just, you know, experimenting with implementing a knowledge gate rather than like an ability gate, as a lot of games of this kind have typically done. That was really revolutionary. And like on subsequent playthroughs, the wall jump just by itself completely changes the game. It allows you to see a lot of allows you to see a lot of the terrain in a different way. It's really cool, and you can truly just like go through the game in almost any order without glitches. It's pretty crazy. When I say go through the game in any order, I mean like the bosses, the main bosses. Okay. Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, I mentioned all that, right? It's such a tough one. Like, this game is still like unrivaled among a lot of today's Metroidvanias, to be honest. I think we're gonna keep it where it is, but I just wanted to have on the record that I did have some updated thoughts that brought it down in my mind, but probably doesn't change its position overall. Yeah, I think this is where I stand. Yeah, okay. And then Metroid Dread. This game I definitely view lesser, for sure. I tried replaying it a couple times recently. I never finished my replays. Maybe that should tell you something. Yeah, I mean, I grew very weary of this game's very like stringent locking you behind from going anywhere else after you get a progression ability, or just the fact that it might seem like this game is like kind of open and, you know, got a lot of map space going on, but you're really kind of going in a straight line for a lot of the time. And people talk about the sequence breaks, like intended sequence breaks and stuff. A lot of those don't really feel realistic to me, apart from like speedrun tricks that are I mean, for sure the developers had in mind that you can sequence break, but it doesn't really feel like the kind of sequence break I think of, like for it's like Super Metroid, where they clearly plant the seed in your head that like, hey, you can do this on a next playthrough and see how it changes the way you traverse the game. For Metroid Dread, a lot of those feel like more like exploits, like, you know, like I hate saying the word intended because it's not really like, who am I to say, right? Like, I'm not the developer, but it doesn't really feel in like the realm of reason. A lot of these sequence breaks that people talk about, like that you can use to like reassess how traversing this game works, right? So I don't know, like that on top of the fact that like replaying the game and dealing with the enemies, I don't know. I think when I first played, I thought I would be annoyed by the enemies, and I ended up not being annoyed by it, right? Very much. But on replays, I'm actually annoyed by the enemies because I just want to explore. I just want to roam freely, but I have to deal with these annoying enemies, and it feels like I'm just rushing rather than like taking my time and like discovering new things about the world and enjoying the scenery and stuff. So I definitely view this game in a lesser regard. Regrettably, it's gonna go pretty far down. It's probably gonna go as far down as here, in fact. And we'll see if this changes, right? But you know, it's rough. The redeeming qualities about this game are still, to me, the movement and the bosses on average. Like for a Metroid game, they're definitely wonderful, and the visuals are great as well. But it's really the like snappiness of the movement. This is like one of the snappiest Metroid games out there. In fact, I think it is the snappiest Metroid game movement wise. It's definitely snappier than a Super Metroid. Super Metroid has good movement as well, mind you, but it's not snappy. It's more like it's more floaty, even though there's still some degrees of precision in that game. Like Metroid Dread, I feel like pretty much anyone that has the controller in their hands can behold the movement that's possible. Whereas like Super Metroid, you kind of have to be an expert speedrunner to fully leverage the movement that's possible. Yeah. On the flip side, Zero Mission. Well, we did replay Portrait of Ruin, but I'm gonna spoil things. It's not gonna change its position, but it's still a game I view in high regard. Zero Mission, on the other hand, is gonna move up. I think this has become my favorite Metroid game. I know I talked all that praise about Metroid Prime, but that's as far as like quality is concerned, which I feel like is a separate assessment in my mind from my personal favorite. You know, like if I were to say my personal favorite Metroidvania, it wouldn't be Aria of Sorrow, it would be Afterimage. Whereas if I were to say what I felt was the highest quality or like best Metroidvania, I would say Aria of Sorrow. That's an example. So that's how I stand, or that's where I stand with regards to Zero Mission versus Prime. Gotta go? Yeah, no problem. Nice streams. Appreciate your hanging out. Yeah, I think this will go up in an upload, so just be on the lookout for that. And if not, then of course the VOD will always be here. Yeah, take care and have a good one. Yeah, Zero Mission. This game is awesome. This game is like a Super Metroid Lite, and honestly, not really. It's still Metroid 1, especially with like the the inspirations of the layout and the map and stuff, but it's got like it's got like a coding, like a DNA of Super Metroid integrated into it. It's like if you like injected Super Metroid's learnings and insights and stuff and like just DNA overall into like Metroid 1. And that's like a wonderful combination for me. Like, I mean, I already told you guys I like Metroid 1 and I like Super Metroid as well. So, I mean, combine them both and you get Zero Mission almost, right? Like, that's awesome. So it's the dream come true. Now, the thing about this game that's not exactly Super Metroid plus Metroid 1 is that it has Fusion's physics, more or less, which I'm going to be honest, I'm not a fan of the weightiness of Fusion. But I think it works fine for Zero Mission specifically because they added back infinite wall jumps and they added back, what's it called? Infinite bomb jump. Like, because of like the nature of the movement in Zero Mission specifically, I think combining it with the weightiness of Fusion actually ends up being okay. I think it all like combines like into something that's surprisingly cohesive and works very well. And the map layout is already something familiar and known to have worked well with Metroid 1, apart from, and it, like it's Metroid 1, but like strips away all the trolling pretty much, which is great. Like that's a dream come true. Yeah, so the map design is great. The boss fights in Zero Mission are pretty poor. I think most Metroid games have poor boss fights though, so it's not really anything different. Definitely better than Fusion's boss fights, but I think some people will disagree with me on that. Some people like the craziness of Fusion's bosses, or like the annoyance of Fusion's bosses, the chaos. Zero Mission's definitely got bad bosses, but like in a different way. The stealth section, I think some people definitely didn't like it. I liked it a lot. I love the stealth section. It's like a nice change of pace, but it doesn't really change the pace. That's the surprising part. The pace is about the same, but it like changes the mindset. Like you're still like venturing room to room, but you got like a different sense of unease. Rather than the uneasiness of not knowing where to go next, it's the uneasiness of not knowing which enemy's gonna greet you and where they're gonna greet you from in the next door. Like obviously once you know, but you got limited armaments to deal with such enemies. And it really puts you in a position where you feel kind of helpless and weak, which is often not the case in Metroid games. Like in Metroid games, the Samus you're playing as is usually quite powerful, right? You rarely have to deal with too many enemies that are you really have to deal with enemies that are, too strong for Samus to deal with, but you feel helpless when you're in the Zero suit in Zero Mission for that stretch. So yeah, I liked that. Yeah, there's a lot to like about this game. Like it's truly great. I really like it a lot. And I think nowadays, especially, it's my go-to over Super Metroid when I'm trying to just have a little bit of fun doing a replay of any Metroid game, especially 2D. So with that in mind, yeah, I think I would put it above Super Metroid. We're adding along to the gold standard, but I think this is how I truly feel now. That's how I truly feel about it. Yeah, okay, so I don't think the rest of Upper Echelon changes here. Yeah, and regarding Portrait of Ruin, I did finish the replay recently, the proper replay, but again, my positioning for it doesn't change. I still think it's the Castlevania game I had the most fun in, other than Aria of Sorrow. So, and yeah, that means I had more fun than Symphony of the Night, but Symphony of the Night is one of the, that's the game that influenced the games that came after, so I think it's necessary to take that into account, measure it accordingly. So, that's why it's still there. Yeah, and I know that some of these other placements might be confusing for some people, but again, feel free to look back on previous parts to understand my reasoning for Harmony of Dissonance and Dawn of Sorrow being so high. Okay. Nothing else here changes. Samus Returns though. So, I didn't fully replay Samus Returns, but I started a replay, and it's a replay I intend on finishing. But I think I understand this game better now, especially after playing the original Metroid 2, because I played Samus Returns before playing the original Metroid 2. Especially after playing Metroid 2, and especially after playing some other Metroids back again. This game is like, how do I say it? Where this game excels, I don't feel like is in the traditional, like, you know, exploration type of thing. It's more like the action platforming style, because it is extremely linear at the end of the day, Metroid Samus Returns. But within each area where you're trying to go and exterminate all the Metroids within that area, you kind of feel like you're playing a mini Metroidvania, because you can go anywhere within that area. But then at the end of the day, you're going from area 1 to area 2 to area 3 and so on and so forth. But within each individual area is like a Metroidvania of its own. So I think that's like, I understand that aspect a bit more than I did the first time. The other aspect I understand more as well is that they're really trying to experiment with making the combat more ironed out. Because a lot of Metroid games prior to it didn't necessarily have state-of-the-art combat by any means. It's more of like it's not a focal point basically. But Metroid Samus Returns has the Eon abilities, and the Eon abilities are so cool in this game specifically. The burst beam, or the beam burst, or whatever it's called. The scan pulse is obviously great. Or I think, is it called pulse radar or is it scan pulse? I think it's called scan pulse. But yeah, the scan pulse is great. The little armor thing as well, the green armor, and the time slow thing. I didn't realize how powerful it was when I first played, because I rarely used it. In fact, I kind of forgot that it was something I had after a certain point, and didn't realize that you are expected to use it in some cases. But that is also really cool. But yeah, mainly just like the entirety of the Eon moveset is something that I'm glad they tried out, because I thought it really expanded upon the otherwise kind of, you know, like mediocre combat basically that Metroid games typically have. Or I shouldn't say, it's not really mediocre, it's just not the focus, right? So it's not something that you're really like, you know, like salivating over basically. So yeah, but the Eon abilities are cool. It's just too bad that the enemies themselves are like super annoying and super tanky. Like a lot tankier than any other 2D Metroid actually, I think. So I think Samus Returns straight up has the tankiest enemies. Kind of sad. Thankfully, by the end of the game, you can kill them pretty quickly. But even before late game starts, the enemies are still taking several shots to kill if you don't wait for them to do their parryable attack exactly. Beam Burst is there to save you, though, thankfully, if you want to kill things quickly. So there's that. Yeah, and then also there was a technique I didn't realize when I first played. It was the spider boost or whatever. It's like it lets you like use a power bomb while you're in spider ball form to like fly in the direction that you did the power bomb from. And it's used for some items in 100%. I don't think there's any progression ability in the regular progression chain of the game that requires using the spider boost, but for 100% you have to use it, and the game never tells you about it. Yeah, and I did do 100% for Samus Returns, by the way. I did. In fact, there's some Metroid games I still have not done 100% for. Samus Returns is one of the few ones I did do it for, so maybe there's something to be said there. But yeah, I ended up liking this game more, interestingly, after the first time I played, as opposed to Dread, where I liked it less, and Super Metroid, where I liked it less, you know? So it is quite interesting that. With that in mind, though, does Samus Returns' position change very much? It's only going to change very little. And as far as it will change is to be just barely above or below Dread. Just below Dread, probably. I think it's still below Dread, but that's like a very tight margin, similar to the margin that we had for Soten and Super Metroid for a time. So yeah. And then lastly, Fusion, as far as Metro games, right? Fusion is going lower. I'm sorry, guys. Fusion, it's not going that much lower, though. I think I like AM2R more than Fusion, which is pretty funny given what I said about AM2R. But I like these games that are also disappointing. Like this is like bottom of the barrel stuff. Okay, so it's not going that much lower. Honestly, I'm surprised that Circle the Moon is even here, as well as Silk Song and Hollow Knight. Like, this is kind of sus. Did I make some compromises or something? But we can leave that there for now. Honestly, I didn't try to like I didn't try to get what's it called? I didn't refresh myself on my perspectives of these games. Cause yeah, I haven't thought about what I thought about Hollow Knight and Silk Song and Circle the Moon in a while. So yeah. Okay, folks, this will conclude the tier list update 1.6. So yeah, as we see it now is where as we see it now is my updated ranking of the Metroidvanias that I've played. We've added a lot more to Gold Standard. I thought that tier would be kind of unshakable for all eternity, basically, but we managed to squeeze some more in there, and I think that's a positive thing. On the other hand, there's still plenty yet to play as far as Metroidvanias that I'm interested in playing, but for the time being, I think the next update won't be for a while. This was the first update we did this year, and I don't think we'll be doing the next one for some time. So, on the horizon, though, there is going to be Castlevania Belmont's Curse and Bloodstained: The Scarlet Engagement. So, those are some new games I'm looking forward to, and we'll play them. And once we play them and finish them, they'll be ranked accordingly on this tier list. So please do look forward to that moment. Otherwise, though, again, that'll conclude the tier list ranking portion.